That rule should apply at all levels, including the commissions, the task forces, and everywhere else where we have any appointments being done. Mr. Chairperson, we end on the 2, just making sure that the committee really understands the women of Kenya, full implementation of 2/3. If we retain the first past the post, but there are better electoral systems that are more inclusive for divided societies like ours, and one of those is PR, or proportional representation. There is a way in which the special seats make you a special member. When you come to parliament, there is wabunge na mama county. So sometimes it says like mama county si mbunge, mama county ni mama county. So if we want to all be wabunge, we should then all be in the proportional representation, so that there is no waheshimiwa. Sometimes even they say na mrembo wa county, waheshimiwa na mrembo wa county. So that sounds like you're not a member of parliament. So the PR system would really make women mainstream, and we really want the BBI team to give us that proposal. So for the persons with disability inclusion, Gertrude Musuruve will speak to matters of inclusion for persons with disability, in particular women with disability, together with Josephine Sinyo.
Thank you very much. Out on issues of women with disabilities. And first of all, Chair, I want to start by saying that persons with disabilities support the BBI process 100%. And the main reason is that persons with disabilities see BBI as a win-win-win situation for PWDs. And I want to say, Chair, and that since 2010, Constitution was implemented. There's need for this BBI to actually do an audit of Article 54(2) of the Constitution that says that 5% representation of PWDs in elective and nominative position at government level, in all public institutions, national level, county level, to see whether it has even reached 0.001%, Mr. Chair. It is very important for an audit to be done from 2010, because the audit will bring out clearly the lacuna that is there in representation of persons with disabilities. So we want to say that this is a good opportunity for persons with disabilities. And another thing that needs to come out clearly is that persons with disabilities want their voice strengthened in leadership and governance. And we are saying this, we are actually appreciating that, yes, according to the Constitution, that in the Senate we have 2 persons with disabilities, 1 male and 1 female, but that voice is not strong enough. So persons with disabilities want a situation where we can strengthen their voice, and in strengthening their voice, it means that when it comes to policies and decision making, it will be it will come out forcefully. Chair, I want to actually come out clearly and say that when we remember even the elections that just ended, there are some counties where we did not have PWD representation at all, even in some county assemblies. And actually, this is negative when it retrogresses persons with disabilities in leadership. And what persons with disabilities want this time round for BBI to do is to ensure that they are in leadership position, they're in decision making. And I want to say that even when you're talking about the women agenda, there's need, Chair, to ensure that in the women agenda, that there's need to ask ourselves, how many women with disabilities are also getting these positions? Even when we talk about the opposite gender rule, how many PWDs are there? When you're talking when we are talking of increasing the 2/3 gender rule, increasing even at national level, at county level, there's need to ask ourselves, how many PWDs are there? Because we have many PWDs in this country who merit, they have the papers, they have the potential in leadership.
The chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed, thank you for according me those few minutes. I'm here as a girl child with a disability who has not gotten access to the BBI report, because we are here to validate, and the BBI report is not in Braille. We are here to validate, and the deaf persons whose right is expressly provided in the Constitution to have sign language in each and every forum have not accessed this document. I'm here as an insider and a person with disability saying, BBI, you will not validate this document when the girl child with the disability, where women seek for affirmative action, and we need another affirmative action inside affirmative action. If my needs, my concerns are not addressed, I am suffering from double jeopardy. Validation will not help if we don't reach out and make sure our documents and our processes are accessible to persons with disability. Even this forum where we are now validating, I know there's no sign language. Accessing here, the senator must have really struggled. I couldn't believe it. There were so many stairs, yet it is a validation forum. Chair and BBI, spare some money with that grant that you have given by government to reach out to the disability fraternity, and you'll be able to enrich the document. You'll be able to have a policy that will cover disability concerns. Finally, Chair, in this country, people retire at 60. It's only when they think of 60 they identify with the disability. Everybody wants to be a person with a disability because of the government policy, because of the Persons with Disabilities Act. If it is that good thing to be a person with a disability, then members of the task force, members of the society, deal and handle disabilities matters very sensitively, because you'll be the next ones claiming the benefits of persons with disability. Thank you.
And we would really want to appreciate what the BBI team has done to consider and to focus on national ethos, because any institution that is standing, even when you look at the region, it is held by the pillars, and these national ethos are going to be the pillars of this country. We appreciate that the BBI has focused on culture and the need to promote cultures, and to use cultures to promote the ethos is very important. Through rites of passage and even through the school system, we really appreciate that, and we hope that the ethos will be perpetuated and propagated through different institutions so that everybody is aware of them. The interdependence between women and youth and children has not been overlooked, and really appreciate that. And the Ministry of Culture that has been proposed, we hope that this is going to take off and is going to make sure that this interdependence is not lost. The marginalized group, the youth, the children, and the women. We also look forward to promoting positive culture and also the cultural gaps that have been overlooked before. For instance, the meaning of elders, it has been so patriarchal. We are hoping that the consideration of women as elders in our communities, in our society, will be highlighted henceforth. And we also look forward to the documentation as proposed by the BBI of our historical and mega history experiences in Kenya. However, there has been a gap which we hope can be filled, and this is one of our recommendations, that we really document what the women of Kenya have done, pre-colonial, colonial, and the rest. Most of us hear about Mekatiriri, we hear about Wangu wa Makeri from myths that are destroying the leadership of women. But we are hoping that from this henceforth, we hope we can register these her stories and not just focus on his story. Thank you so much. And we hope that the establishment of the Ethics Commission is going to help us track down all these issues and make sure that they're done. The legislative policy and administrative action that's recommended there, we hope that this can be used to make sure that all these proposals are put into place. Ours is to commend you and also to add onto your proposals. Let us go ahead. We'll work together with you as women and support in every action that you propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have been commended so many times.
Joyce, I'm going to Chair, Vice Chair, dignified members, women of Kenya. I'm going to emphasize on two things that BBI has said that women really concur with. One is women support and embrace very much the issue that you have discussed, identified, that there is more emphasis on rights than on responsibilities. That is a fact in Kenya. There's more emphasis on rights than responsibilities, even though certain rights of women are just on paper and not actually actualized. So the emphasis on rights is going to continue for them to be implemented, but we do accept that BBI identified correctly that responsibilities and rights go together. The other thing that I'm going to say with regard to what the BBI said is that what the BBI calls skin in the game, which Patricia already talked about. If you're heading an institution, you cannot escape from its services. You have to go to those services. I think that's really something very, very, very important. It will help enhance services. It will help enhance trust. It will help, to ensure that services are good. Having said that, we had a couple of recommendations to make with regards to responsibilities and rights. One, we call upon the duty bearers, both in national government and the county governments, to undertake policy and administrative decisions to ensure the return to the rule of law. Yes, we are getting further and further away from the rule of law, both at county level and at the national level, and we call upon the return to the rule of law. The women of Kenya also, we take our responsibility seriously, and we continue to mobilize. We mobilize for civic education. We mobilize to teach women about their rights and responsibilities. We mobilize to teach youth. We mobilize even with regard to building bridges, to tell them what building bridges is all about. We hope that this in turn will help the young people, will help the women to undertake their responsibility to hold the various government, both national and county, responsible for various standards, for various actions. So the reason why we do our responsibility of training, of creating awareness, is so that citizens are able to hold the government and service providers accountable. Three, Chairperson, is that women of Kenya, we call upon National Assembly to pass the Food and Nutrition Act, which has been pending in Parliament. This will ensure that people are food secure. We have seen what is going around when people can't afford food. They subject themselves to be beaten so that they can put food on the table. People should be food secure, and I think the first thing that the Parliament should do, and the women recommend this, is to pass the Food Security Bill. We recommend that the government should develop appropriate policies and strategies and plans and implementation programs which are geared towards enhancing and guaranteeing food and nutrition security for all. Because it all starts from the stomach. The one thing we all did before we came here, is to have something in our stomachs. So I think we cannot be overemphasized that food security is very important. Finally, Chairperson, Vice Chairperson, we recommend the review and enforcement of policies, legislations, regulations that require that private actors honor their contractual obligations, prevent corruption, and as employers ensure that employees enjoy their employment rights. I thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the issues of Chair of the, let me start with the salutations. Chair of the Steering Committee, members of the team. I'm going to be talking on ethnic antagonism and competition, and I'm going to go straight to the point because, as you say, you've been acknowledged enough. And the women of Kenya, of course, regret that our ethnic diversity has been a source of conflicts and a basis of the vice of discrimination at different levels. And so the women of Kenya recommend the full implementation of the principle of inclusion by the national and county governments in the appointments of truly create the face of Kenya in all its public institutions. And women of Kenya doubt the viability, however, in the report, the women of Kenya doubt the viability and practicability of the BBI's proposal of achieving more integration through creation of a political federation that can result into elimination of ethnic antagonism. We are very wary about the viability and practicability of that proposal. And of course, the women of Kenya support the BBI report on the issues of formulating a gender-responsive policy and laws as part of the strategies of having free, fair, transparent, and accountable elections. This also goes hand in hand with my other speakers who are going to be talking about gender-based violence on issues of elections, divisive elections, and ethnicity. And of course, finally, whenever there are divisive elections leading to conflicts, women are more affected negatively compared to men, owing to their unique vulnerabilities, and given that they happen to be the cares of and attending to the aged and the children, and so anytime there is ethnic and divisive elections, the women are the most affected. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, and all protocol observed, thank you so much. And for me, I just want to take people back in those days of independence, whereby negative ethnicity played a key role of dividing Kenya. The only time Kenyans were together is during independence, and also we want to request if BBI will bring all Kenyans together, and even in the membership, if BBI will put the face of all Kenyans in the team that leads BBI in Kenya. And also, like our leaders who are in Kenya and the political race, how it has affected the people at the grassroots. Most of the time, the leaders in political seats ensure that we are divided in our ethnicity. So we want to request these documents in accordance of the law to ensure that Kenyans are united, and BBI should also unite Kenyans and ensure that we have development at the grassroots. And every woman should be represented from grassroots, women with disability, and young women. And because I'm seeing opportunity on this table, I show my interest to sit with you as a BBI member. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I won't be long. Actually, we had been given a...
Again, the MSMEs and the agriculture turnaround. We know we have now a new export strategy that we need to support. We need to invest in inter-county economic blocks and fully support them so that they can realize the full economic gains that is possible. Looking at the matter of the national government borrowing around local credit, we know that our government has had a lot of borrowing, local credit, and therefore MSMEs and the private sector in general have not been able to access sufficient local credit. And our proposal is to have a cap of local credit accessed by government to 50% of funds available locally. This model is successful in India, where they faced similar problem, where private sector faced a crunch on liquidity, and business was not doing well. And therefore, they put a cap of 50% of money available within local credit to go to private sector, and the other 50% capped for government. We would like to bring this as an important recommendation to free money for MSMEs and private sector. We would also like to recommend the redesign and structure of the national budget to cure budget deficit. The deficit and the large borrowing comes from planning and the national budget. And therefore, we would like to recommend that the budget is designed to ensure minimal deficit. And therefore, we would like to work on a low deficit budget as a nation, and depend on our internal revenues. We have other recommendations on our accounting system, and I know that time is running. Let me go to the issue of cartels. The cartels is already mentioned in the report, but we would like to elevate the matter of cartels to be a national threat in terms of a shared prosperity, and come up with a much more elaborate way of dismantling cartels in the economy, both in informal and formal sectors. Cartels create vendor-driven projects, exaggerate market prices, distort the economy, and are the part of what takes us away from shared prosperity. So we know it was there, but it is a much bigger problem that we are facing. I would like to, Chair, we have a lot of recommendations, and I know my colleagues would want to comment on their areas, but I would like to just touch one or two things. Parastatal reforms, that we need to maximize our parastatal productivity. And we would like to see how we can ensure the parastatals do not drain a lot from the exchequer, but in fact become productive by reviewing their management and ensuring that all the recommendations around parastatal reforms are implemented. We will also want, Chair, to recommend on the matter of our national airline. It's such an important strategic asset to this nation that it needs to be looked at as a key asset, that it needs to be an economic driver for development. So it's not just a business for transporting passengers, but a key part of our economy. On banking and finance, interest rates change on MSMEs should be lowered to accommodate the MSME growth in the economy, and therefore the Kenya Banking Sector Charter, being a regulatory policy and guideline of the CBK, addresses this area. And we need to continuously ensure that the MSME sector benefits from very affordable credit. On the other, there's a report that there's one of the recommendations you have made at the item 120E, and you have proposed about there's a proposal that there needs to be a law and a regulation to regulate how banks should lead to the various sectors of the economy. We propose that we do not have a law drafted to regulate exact allocation of funds by banks to the sectors of the economy, but create administrative means and incentives to ensure that they lend, but without a law, because it could also have a counterproductive effect, like the interest cap rate that we had. But we would like the objective of this to be realized. Mr. Chairman, I would like to invite Dr. Wilfred Kiboro to take us through.
Thank you, Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving us this opportunity. I'll be very quick, and I'll be covering the Chapter 2, lack of national ethos. I think when you look at what is really ailing our country, really lack and breakdown in our values as a nation. So I just want to make a few points regarding the religious organizations, which we know are supposed to be the pinnacle of these ethics. They have, however, been faced with many challenges in the area of ethics. It has been proposed, and this is what we are proposing, that religious organizations, we really feel that some of them should be regulated, because we have a lot of WAC religious organizations which are nothing but businesses. So we are supporting the area of regulation, and this can even be through self-regulation, where they are organized under an umbrella body to ease the streamlining. The second point I would like to make is that while we support the removal of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, there is need to strengthen the enforcement mechanism of the code of ethics in each sector, including having disciplinary measures. We recommend that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission be strengthened, even as all the prosecutorial powers are being shifted to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And we are also further suggesting that the Commission be named Ethics, Values and Integrity Commission. This will, in our view, be a strong and autonomous body focused on enforcing ethics. And we are also further proposing that all directorates and commissions dealing with ethics and values be brought under one umbrella to avoid duplication, because we feel there are a lot of these bodies which are all over the place and they need to be streamlined. A good example of enforcement is requiring the presentation of a letter of good conduct standing from professional bodies before any professional can be awarded a public or even private tender. Because we have, so that you're saying that people who are at the center of all this corruption, they need to have some sort of vetting mechanism, and it should not be just anybody who sets up a company today and tomorrow he's awarded a multi-billion contract without really knowing what is happening. So we are saying that this is one of the things they should do. The other thing that we are saying is that because people get away with anything, I think there should be consequential management so that contractors who do shoddy jobs or all kinds of things, they should be blacklisted so that they should never get any job anywhere around the region, and that should be very punitive. Furthermore, I think it should be able to be followed so that if we did register the companies they are working for, then they don't go and set a similar company at a dubious name, and then they continue business as usual. So we are saying that that needs to be done. The other point we are also saying is that the ethos we seek to inculcate should start actually from our children. I think our generation, we lost our path somewhere. And I'm not blaming Bishop Jenga here, but I think we need to start actually investing in our children, because I think maybe our generation, maybe it's a bit too late for us to change our ethos, but perhaps there might be hope in our grandchildren. Maybe if we start focusing on that right from the beginning, it will take time, it's a journey, it is not something that will happen overnight, but perhaps we should focus more right from the kindergarten all the way through, so that because maybe you cannot teach an old dog new tricks, but at least we can mold the young ones. The other thing we are also proposing is, if you look like Tanzania, one of the things that holds them together and they don't have all this ethnicity and so on is because of a unifying language. We really need to strengthen our Swahili language so that if people speak the same language, they think the same way, it could probably bring a little bit of cohesion and understanding among our communities. The other point we also want to make, as far as ethos are concerned, is actually, we are talking about our leadership, and the government must also be seen to be at the forefront, coming up with standards for national values, because if our leaders are not portraying those national values, they cascade down to everybody else. And finally, on matters of ethos, we need to be alive to the impact of social media, betting and gambling on the youth. Our youth are subjected to a lot of stuff because of social media and so on. They live in a different world. So we need to understand where they're coming from. And there is perhaps need to manage and or address challenges that come with technology. And while comparatively a huge number of people are still not on technological bandwagon, especially the older generation, the impact on the youth is very concerning. As far as betting is concerned, we are saying very strictly that we should actually not even tickle around licensing a few companies here. We are saying we should ban all kinds of gambling. It adds no value other than putting a lot of money in it, because it's just a game of cheating. If you look at the gaming companies, out of the 200 billion shilling enterprise that we have, that money went into less than 10 people's pockets. And the rest, where is that money coming from? The poor fellows in the street who are being addicted, people who don't have money. So we are saying, let's ban it. We have nothing to lose. So let's get on with that. So that's what we are proposing. If I may continue, my final point, I would like to talk about corruption. And I do agree with the report that you guys said, and said perhaps corruption is the most single issue that the nation is facing today. We agree entirely with that position. But we want to make a couple of observations. One is that the role of the public in fighting corruption, and our group has been focusing on that, it has not really come out very well in the report in terms of the personal responsibility and the public, how we are going to engage the public in actually fighting corruption. And we're also proposing that we should have an ethics and integrity commission with full-time commissioners, so that away from EACC, so that because joining ethics and prosecutorial powers doesn't work. Let's have one body, that a commission or whatever it is, that deals with issues of ethics. And we also think that recommendation 136 on the BBI report be fully implemented through enhanced budgetary allocation to both the EACC and the proposed Ethics and Integrity Commission with full-time commissioners. Because if we are taking this seriously, let's fund it and let us enable it. We are also suggesting that all leaders at all levels be encouraged to repeatedly and regularly deliver messages on the need to prevent corruption and bring out the role of the public in fighting and preventing corruption during public engagements as well as in the statements issued from time to time on the fight against corruption. If you look at our leadership, you can count the number of people who are talking against corruption. And I'm talking here at the very highest level. We must be seen really to be driving this agenda by talking from the pulpit, from the political rallies everywhere, where people understand that this is a serious issue that we are dealing with. So I think I've talked about the fully fledged Ethics and Integration Commission. I think that is well overdue, and I think our specific recommendations are actually carried in the text, so the commissioners can read that at their own good time. In the interest of time, I'll move on. The issue, one of the things that we want to do is the issue of people in high public offices staying in office when they are facing cases of economic crimes in court. And we also want to suggest that there should be set timelines for resolving serious economic crimes cases. And our suggestion is that people who steal 20 billion, 30 billion here, 100 billion here, I think they should, all these cases, we should try to determine them within 6 months maximum, rather than dragging on and on and on. If you can resolve the issues of contention of the highest office in this land, like the presidential election, within a month, we should be able to deal with this within 6 months so that we can move on. The other issue is about asset recovery, which should be strengthened, but also more importantly is also what we do with the assets that we recover, because there should be an area of transparency in what is recovered and what it is subsequently used for. The funding of the judiciary, I think we are saying that yes, there are issues around there. We feel that the judiciary is not properly funded. They need to be funded more, but also involved with that is also that the judiciary also needs to think how they operate, because I don't think they operate in a very efficient manner. They spend most of their time on petty cases, and they don't spend enough time on major cases. I think they need to rethink how they organize themselves so that they can deliver value for money. The other thing is also we were suggesting that because there is also this back and forth, people blaming whether it is the DPP, the DCI, or the judges who are dropping the ball and the issue about corruption. Can we find out somebody, an independent body, to actually audit what is happening and see who actually dropped the ball? And the other final point we want to make is to fast track and enact legislation on lifestyle audit. I think when people steal money, they put it somewhere. So lifestyle audits should be done administratively without going to court. And if people cannot explain where they have gotten their money, the assets should be repossessed and taken by the state. So we are saying that even in terms, so that needs to be strengthened. And also we are saying that Justice Mobi Gogi's ruling be defined in legislation. Okay. And we are also talking about those issues like when you talk about the governors who step aside when they have been accused of court, there is maybe ambiguity as to exactly what that means, because they still go to the office and they can still appoint their deputies, they can still run the thing, because you don't need to be physically in your office to actually run anything in this day and age. So that needs to be defined much more sharply, so we understand correctly that if you are accused of those things, you should go home and you don't get involved at all in running any of the businesses. So I think the whole issue about the role of banks in fighting corruption, I think that has been said, but we are also saying that rather than just focusing on the bank, we are suggesting that any public sector or private sector organization and accounting officer, all executives that are found to be laundering money and enabling corruption should be sentenced to heavy fines and jail time. So yes, the banks play an important role, but let's make it much wider to other people as well who are also involved in the whole issue about corruption and anti-money laundering. So I think that's most of the other things. I think anti-money laundering. I think we have made the points here. The commission can read. We have made very specific proposals there. But one of the things that we would like to say is that the proposal to withdraw banks' licenses or any other company, I don't think that's really a very good thing, because particularly for banks, if you withdraw the license, for instance, if KCB, for that matter, is caught with a bit of money laundering and you take off the licenses, the financial and consequences for that is much, much broader than just punishing KCB or any of these other banks. So I think it should be dealt with in a better way, that it does not cause financial collapse of the country. So basically, the other point that is very quickly is just the role of professionals in corruption. We are also saying that it is becoming evident that there must be a common approach to dealing with unethical behavior of the professionals. They are all over there, and we want to mention particularly the lawyers, where we are proposing that the lawyers also, when you talk about the lawyer-client confidentiality, I think they should also be required to report on unusual things through the FRC, like the banks do. I know this is not popular with the lawyers, but these days, I think our group was very clear that the way money is being laundered and money is being stolen is, if you steal the money, you take it to your lawyer, and then you raise a fictitious bill of 200 million and say it's professional fee, but then you have told him, 10 million is for so-and-so, 10 million is for so-and-so, that kind of disbursement. So we are saying we should have a sharp focus on how that is used, so that the lawyers are not used as a mechanism for money laundering. So we are also saying that for professionals, no appointments of any professional to any public or private office be made without ethical clearance from the respective professional bodies, and perhaps so that we avoid all these quacks. So, dear commissioners, I think that I'll stop there, but I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, and we also want to say we are very...
Take you through our input on chapters 3, 4, and 5. That would be page 3 on our presentation. On responsibilities and rights, we are alive to the fact that the new constitution has a very elaborate Bill of Rights, and among them is the inalienable right to life. However, we are losing the sanctity and value of life. If we look at media reports in the past couple of months, or even stretching far back to 2 years, there are many cases of femicide, there are many cases of spousicide, if there's a word like that. So we are concerned that the general populace is not valuing life as it should. Perhaps we need to have a conversation with ourselves, and this is not just a burden on the leaders. Even us as citizens have that obligation. On responsibilities, we are also concerned that increasingly good Samaritanism is on the decline, because a few rogue individuals have taken advantage of people's good intentions. So you stop by the road to help an accident victim, and the next thing you know, you're in custody for the next 2 weeks because the police are harassing you for helping someone who was in need. So there's a bit of a negative impact that comes along with good Samaritanism. Maybe we need to also audit ourselves and go back to the basics and bring that back. On rights, again, we need to balance public interest vis-a-vis private interests. A good example would be the large-scale national infrastructure projects, where we have individuals or private companies running to court to bar infrastructure projects that have a large impact on the general populace. Perhaps the courts and even the ministries should be guided in a way that they approach some of these issues cautiously. If there is procedure to be followed, then indeed it is followed, so that we avoid a lot of injunctions being issued to stop development projects. On ethnic antagonism and competition, we agree that we need to diffuse ethnic antagonism at the political leadership level as a key strategy to deal with ethnic antagonism. we can perhaps, and we were having a chat yesterday and saying, what is the need of registering 100 political parties with the same objectives? So if someone comes up, Joiner says they want to register a political party today, and there are 5 other parties that identify with their ideals, we could easily tell Joiner and her party members to join these other parties, so that we have clear party modules and values that each party aspires to. The British model is a good example where there are only 3 political parties. So if you're not in A or B, you're free to join C. That way we also have to strengthen the office of the Registrar of Political Parties. I think she has been acting for a very long time, and even the current registrar is in acting capacity. So we need to strengthen that office and to also make it stringent and tougher for political parties to be formed, not in a bid to fight democracy or to make it hard, but at least to have some bit of sanity. We've had cases where people suddenly find out they're members of political parties a few weeks to election. So perhaps we can also make use of technology to make it impossible for some of these fraudsters to sign up members against their will. Then we very, very strongly support criminalization of open ethnic mobilization. A good example is this BBI report. It raises very fundamental issues that go to the core issues that this country faces. However, when we look at the public forums, the rallies that are being held around, no one is talking about salient issues. We are all politicizing the BBI. So we need to be very strict and to stop this habit of letting politicians take advantage of our ethnically fueled emotions to drive their selfish agenda. Then the counties have also proved to play a hand in fueling ethnic antagonism through nepotism, through discrimination of certain clans within their counties. So that also needs to be checked by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. And there also needs to be strict guidelines on employment of members of public service officials in the counties. Then lastly, on divisive elections, which is, I believe, the reason we are all here today, we need to demystify the presidency. The reality on the ground is that Kenyans feel that if the president is not from my particular region or my particular ethnicity, then my people will not benefit. We need to change that narrative so that people are comfortable enough to know that even if so-and-so from the Iteso community is a president, then it doesn't mean that people in Wajir or people in Kwale will not get access to resources. So we need to change that narrative and demystify it to the common mwananchi. We also need to ensure that there is a way that the presidential losers, for lack of a better word, will be taken care of so that it's not a do or die affair. We also need to make Kenya a working democracy. The leader of opposition should be properly empowered and fully strengthened with resources and capacity as a key office in checking government. Lastly, the Prime Minister needs a remuneration commensurate to the responsibilities that come with the office of the PM and not just remuneration equated to that of members of Parliament. That will be all.
Please, make
Super
it
Churchill
brief.
can be very brief so that we can have time for questions. Okay. Super Churchill.
Thank you very much. I'm Suba Churchill, representing the civil society sector. I'm going to highlight presentations on Devolution, Chapter 9. We have proposed that we have 5 elders at the village level. Remember, devolution is supposed to be taken to where majority of the Kenyan people live, and we are proposing that we have 5 elders equivalent to a cabinet that mirror the county executive committees for effective accountability. We have devolved sports, but youth functions still remain a function of the national government. We think that it is appropriate that the needs of youth perhaps needs to be dispersed so that county governments take up this function fully. We also propose that gender functions be devolved because majority of people get affected by gender issues also live in the counties. Health function, under the health, we support the noble idea of universal health care. We fully join in calling for the establishment of a Health Service Commission that deals with the recruitment, deployment, and remuneration. We believe that this will help to standardize and regularize the human resource for health management system, and the Kenya Medical and Practitioner Dentist Union reports that counties with health service commissions have a significant lower level of health workers' strife, and much better health care needs to be supported. Under the planning, we propose that we give timelines within a year all counties that must enact laws that adopt the county integrated plans for planning purposes. We propose that we increase capacity and resources around the above county planning, and that lack of this plan should be a national, declared as a national threat. We propose that there be a national spatial integrated plans and land use plans that need to be implemented and bolster capacity. We propose for a strengthening of county integrated spatial plans. Under the issue of pending bills, which has been an issue in our recent past, we propose that we prevent pending bills and non-viable projects so that they are dealt with accordingly. We propose that we enact prompt payment law to both public and private sector that must be in place ready in 6 months, and which will cure liquidity issues. We propose closely tied to our proposal to have a national asset authority that should track which assets have a national and whether they are being put to optimal use, because we think that there are a number of assets that are still either not falling within the two levels of government that we have. We propose that we become a bit stricter with the habit of abandoning incomplete projects, because every time a new leadership is elected, for example, a governor, the tendency is not for a new governor to complete projects that had been started by the predecessors, and this has led to wastage of resources, which is uncalled for. Under stakeholder public participation, we are proposing that that be inculcated so that development decisions are made not based on politics. We propose that we strengthen the Ministerial Stakeholders Forum to give stakeholder views and track that those views are taken into account. We further propose the strengthening of the Office of the Public Rapporteur as proposed in the report, to show the importance of that office and further to elevate it to an important function. More so because experience has shown that it is never in the interest of people in leadership to educate the public. We have, for example, currently the requirement that county governments conduct civic education. And I'm not sure whether such a thing has been happening in the counties. So we are saying that if all those public and civic education functions can be vested in the office of the public rapporteur, then Kenyans will be more educated on their system of governance and will be able to take up their responsibilities. Safety and security, we recognize that intelligence gathering constitutes 50% of policing, and that this role largely belongs to the members of the community. We propose strengthening of communities and community-based organizations to help with the provision of intelligence. We propose that there be advanced equipment and technology around policing, because what we need perhaps is not more police officers. I think the current policing trend is not to have more police, but to equip them with the technology that will enable them police more effectively. We propose that non-gazetted traffic blocks be done away with, because they have become conduits for corruption, and toll stations that only enrich police officers and their bosses who are stationed in those places. We propose that professional organizations be part of the auditing of public projects to reduce and prevent and uproot corruption, so that they can also give their expert opinions on some of those projects. Under commissions and independent offices, we have agreed largely with the report of the BBI task force, but we have also a few recommendations that we should have a devolution oversight authority instead of the regional governments that the politicians are proposing all over the place in the rallies. we think regional governments are unnecessary, and in that place, all we need is a devolution oversight authority that can provide a link between national government and the devolved units. We fully support the proposal to separate the obligation to conduct criminal investigation from obligation to promote and enforce ethics in public service, and therefore we support the disbandment of the IBC and its structure into a more desirable framework. We, however, do not agree with the issues of political parties nominating commissioners to the IBC. I think all commissions, including the IBC, should be accountable to the public. So instead of making them accountable to political parties, I think all commissions are people's institutions that should be accountable to the public, and therefore we disagree with the suggestion in the report that they be nominated by political parties. As I finish, and last of my presentation, is to take you a little bit back under shared responsibility that was highlighted by our chair, and specifically refer you to Roman 10 on page 6, just for purposes of emphasis. There is a recommendation there that we fast track the coming into force of the Public Benefit Organizations Act. Now, this is a law that was enacted way back in 2012 and was assented to by retired President Mwai Kibaki on 14th of January 2013. Now, it would surprise you that this law that is supposed to repeal the NGO Coordination Act has not been commenced to date. And I think it is a tragedy for a country that believes in the rule of law. We know as a sector that we have had this love-hate relationship between government and the civil society, but it should not be taken to a point where a law that is supposed to create an enabling environment for a sector that brought into this country 156 billion shillings into the economy in the 2018-2019 fiscal year should be punished by not having this law commenced. So I want to just emphasize recommendation under number Roman 12 under shared prosperity, that the civil society sector, better known as NGOs, make a significant contribution in the fight against corruption, in the promotion of peace and tranquility, in attracting revenue as social investors in this country, and in responding to emergencies, particularly in marginalized areas where for years local communities have at times thought that NGOs were the government. And so I wanted to emphasize that, so that this, one of the bridges we should be building should be between the national government and the civil society, and 47 other bridges between the 47 county governments and the civil societies operating in those regions. Thank you. We recognized the challenges that, for example, you remember what played out over division of revenue, and how National Assembly in particular has always sided with the executive because it is in their interest. CDF is a charge of what is retained by the national government, and so we do not expect any member of the National Assembly to disagree with the executive on how much is shared by the counties. And we think that the transitional authority was disbanded a bit too early. A number of its functions had not been performed well, including unbundling of functions and costing them, so that we can have a more professional and accurate way of actually settling some of those issues that we think are still outstanding. And therefore, it will all depend on how we define and elaborate on the TORs of the proposed authority that will help both national and county governments to resolve some of the issues that apparently the intergovernmental authorities is not able to resolve, because the intergovernmental